Good morning and welcome to English 316. My name is Nancy Knowles. I prefer to be called Nancy, but you can call me Dr. Knowles or Professor Knowles if you wish. I apologize for the purring. I have a cat in my lap this morning. This is Steve, my cat. So I don't know if you can see him, but he's here. Hello. Hello, Steve. So I'd like to welcome you to our class. We will be covering issues of grammar pertinent to teachers and also anyone who will be using writing professionally in their future career. Of course, attention to grammar is always helpful for academic work that you're doing at the university, and really for any writing that you'll do beyond college. Some knowledge of sentence structure and sentence elements may be helpful to you in terms of establishing your credibility through writing and communicating effectively with others. So I hope you'll enjoy this class. We'll be working primarily on outcomes associated with content knowledge, particularly traditional and linguistic approaches to acquiring and teaching grammar. Those of you who are not headed into teaching might reflect back on your own acquisition of grammatical knowledge as we talk about teaching. I know we've had lots of maybe good and bad experiences with grammar in our lives. And so that reflection helps us better understand how to control the grammar that we use currently and how to work with others in the context of language. Many of us will be supervising others who will produce written materials. And knowing how to do that is very similar to attempting to work with students in teaching grammar, particularly related to respecting Englishes, the plural, that are brought to the communication situation and assisting folks in producing language conventional to the context in which they're operating. That's important regardless of where we're working. We'll also be working on understanding the difference between oral and written discourse, the issues of dialect, issues of transference of knowledge across contextual boundaries, and difficulties associated with mastering traditional grammatical rules. We'll also be talking about the politics of grammar that is particularly related to power and discrimination and how to address that conflict. In addition to those content elements, we'll be working on communication. So we will be using grammatical strategies ourselves. Both grammar A, which is traditional grammar, and grammar B, which has to do with breaking the rules. Tom Romano, for example, argues that breaking the rules is a great way to learn the rules because you have to play with them and get to know them in order to break rules. So we'll be talking about both of those things. We'll also be working on critical thinking, and that is particularly through analyzing syntactic elements, both inductively attempting to discern what makes a particular grammatical pattern, and then deductively by applying categories of understanding to sentences. We'll also be doing some writing based on evidence. So our main assignment is a reflection that will work with providing evidence to demonstrate our understanding of our own written use of English. And then we'll be integrating all of this learning with other academic and professional kinds of work. So that's really the overview of the course. This is a general education course in the aesthetics and humanities category. It is also a university writing requirement course, and so has some writing and revision of writing required as part of the class. Of course, that suits the content. So you'll be focusing on knowledge that you've gained from past encounters with language. That is, what do you know based on your prior learning and use of language about how grammar works? We will also be thinking through a number of exercises and activities about how to acquire more language. And that's particularly difficult for native speakers because native speakers acquired language unconsciously. It just happened probably before birth. And then especially in the first couple years of learning to be a human on this earth, we acquire language by osmosis, by listening to others, by interacting with others. And it's hard as an adult native speaker to go back and attempt to see the sentence elements that contribute to the rules that are used in traditional discussions of grammar. So we'll be trying to notice and see those elements in our own writing and then be able to manipulate them. And then we'll also be thinking professionally about future uses of grammar. So how we might teach grammar, how we might interact with colleagues or subordinates around grammar, and how the politics of grammar affect those interactions. This course has 2 textbooks. They are both available through the EOU bookstore, and there's a link in Canvas to the bookstore you can use if you have not already acquired those books. There are, in the first couple weeks, I'll also post some PDF copies of the chapters we'll be using so that you have time to get the books you'll need. Probably by about week 3, you're going to need to have both of the textbooks. So obviously you're learning online, so you know that English 316 is an asynchronous online course. We'll be using materials in Canvas and in Google Docs. And so you'll be seeing how to use those things in Canvas. Let me switch over and share with you the syllabus. You can see how the work we'll be doing this term adds up. Okay, so here's our syllabus, right? I've talked through, oh, that's not our syllabus. Let me try sharing something else. Those were my course introduction notes for what I'm talking about today, right? So here's the information about me. Here's the information about our textbooks. I just went through the course description and our learning outcomes. And here's the means of assessment. So this is how your work will be assessed this term. And you'll notice that the bulk of the work that we do in this class is exercises. And those are the exercises that I'm using to try to help you see grammar, which is really hard. So we'll spend most of our time doing that, weeks 1 through 7. And then in the last few weeks of the term, we'll be working on 2 final assignments. One is a reflection, as I mentioned, which is an essay. And the other is the final exam. We'll start working on the final exam in week 8. And the final exam is essentially taking 40 terms that we've learned to work with this term and applying them to a particular document. So that is labeling to demonstrate that you understand them. And we'll do a sort of preliminary labeling in week 8. And then the final exam, you'll get feedback from me. And the final exam will then be points awarded for correctly labeling things. So that's essentially what we'll be doing this term. Okay. Just going back to, okay, now let me go into Canvas. So again, I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, so this is our Canvas class. The front page will be the same all term, right? So you'll always be able to get to my contact information. And then I would recommend, well, let's walk through it. So eventually there will be an announcements link between home and syllabus. I use announcements in order to broadcast issues that affect all students. And so one thing you can do in Canvas is set your notifications so that announcements make it wherever you need them to be to catch your attention. The syllabus has 2 documents. The print syllabus that I just shared with you on the screen, right, is there, so you can print that out and look at it. There's also a print schedule, and that's the schedule that I use to double check that I've got all of the assignments set up in Canvas. So that's ready for you to look at. And even though you won't be able to access future weeks modules currently, you can use that schedule to kind of determine the workload for the week. You can also see those things organized here by week and deadline in the course summary, right? So each of our credit bearing assignments, and actually each week has a week 1 materials overview, and that's set up as an assignment so that it has a deadline. So every Monday, usually Monday, unless there's a holiday on Monday, we go in and you can take a look at week 1 materials. I'd like you to review them so you know what we're doing this week. And then each of the other credit bearing activities is listed as an assignment with a deadline. And just so that I can organize my deadlines in the order in which I wish you would to do the work, the deadlines sometimes have odd times of day. So most of them are between 11 and 11:59 on the Sunday at the end of the week. Just know at the end of week 10 or in week 10, there's a couple of Friday deadlines because I want to make sure that you get your course evaluation submitted. And if you do want to submit, if you do want to work with a writing tutor in the writing center, I want to make sure you get that work in by the end of the business day, right on Friday of week 10. Otherwise, you may not have an opportunity to access a tutor, for example. So those are Friday deadlines in week 10, but most of the rest of the deadlines are Sunday. Okay, and then our work is organized into modules, and all of them except one are weekly. So they will be released at least by the Monday of the week of where the work begins. Occasionally I may have them ready early and you can access them early, but usually I'd like you to work at my pace, because if you get ahead of me, it's really horrible for me on my end, because I need to be able to keep up with you. So usually I release the module the Monday of the week. You have until Sunday to get the work done. Okay, there's one module up here at the top called Grammar on the Street, and that in that dialogue, I'd like each individual in our class to be on the lookout for grammatical issues in the world around you. I am not interested in random grammar things that you can look up on the web. I'd really like you to keep your eyes open on social media right now, in the signage that you see around you, in the documents that come across your desk. I'd like you to be on the lookout for grammar errors or interesting uses of grammar in your life. And so I'd like everybody to post at least once to Grammar on the Street something that you noticed. And let me stop my share right now, and I'll just go to, again, my notes for this introduction, because I do have an example. This is the one I like to use. It's my favorite one because it was a huge poster at the Moda Center some years ago. And clearly people had spent billions of dollars. I don't know, billions, that's too many, but lots of money on advertising Sizzle Pie, which is a Portland-based pizza place. But you may notice this is a huge banner on the wall in the Moda Center, and notice that there's an error in the banner, and that error was in absolutely all of the materials that Sizzle Pie had been using in their promotion. Eat pizza every day, every day, every day, and every day with a space between every and day are two different words. So somebody had picked the wrong one. So that is my error. I'll probably get that posted to the discussion board in the Grammar on the Street area, but that's one of my favorites. I also have another one I'll probably post that's came up in my neighborhood, but I won't talk about it. You'll just have to go and look at it. Okay, so every week has a set of materials, and as I said, there's usually a materials link, which is an overview of the work that we'll be doing this week. Make sure to go into the activities through here, because if you just go in assignment by assignment, you won't get all the background information you might need to understand what that assignment is for. Right, so here's the week 1 materials. There's an overview. I'll be posting this course introduction momentarily, the link to the syllabus, the textbook link, the topics we'll be working on this term. And then I'll be asking you to do a few introductory things, right? So I'd like you to be working with language that's interesting to you rather than like workbook language. So we will do a little of that, but I'd like you to set up a portfolio of documents you can pull language from that you'd be interested in working with. So it asks you, the portfolio instructions ask you to pick a number of different genres of documents, some of them yours, some of them belonging to others, and just dump them into a Google folder that I have set up for you. And if you look in the shared with me, you'll see the English 316 folder in your Google Docs. And if you've never been in there, you go in there through your EOU email. You can click on the 9 little boxes at the top right-hand corner of the screen and find Google Docs, and then find shared with me, and you'll see it in there. I'd also like you to take a grammar survey, and the survey acts as a baseline at the beginning of the term. You'll be doing the survey again toward the end of the class to see how you've improved. And the survey will generate a report to you about your answers so that you'll be able to compare the week 1 answers to the week 8 answers, which I think will be really enlightening. Hopefully you'll learn something, right? And I already mentioned Grammar on the Street, so you can participate there whenever you're ready. That has a deadline of the end of the term, so just do it at some point. Okay, so this week we're focusing particularly on whole language. If you're in the College of Education, you may have encountered that term before. So there's some lecture material there. There are a couple of readings. These are both in our Weaver textbook. So I've also posted PDFs so that you can make sure to read them this week and not wait for your textbook. And then there's a couple of assignments here related to whole language, one of which is what I call an inductive assignment. It sort of asks you to move from language in the world backwards to the rule, right? Instead of starting with the rule and moving toward the language and trying to see the rule in the language. I'd like you to look at the language, look for patterns in the language, and see if you can build backwards to the rule. So you'll see a number of those kinds of assignments this term. This is the first of them, and it's the easiest of them. The other ones that we'll be working on later are more difficult, and they require a number of steps, I think, really to help native speakers see the grammatical patterns in language that we use every day. So that's that one. There's also a language acquisition assignment. That's a discussion. Hopefully we'll get to know each other through that. We'll also be, I want to say, like, we're just getting started with some discussion of our own language history. And I call it language acquisition because it's our memories about where we started with language. What are our earliest memories about where we started to learn to read and write, listen and speak, all that stuff that we do very unconsciously now. So that language will be useful when we're writing our reflection later in the term. So I guess I'm calling it banking. We're banking language for later as well as getting to know each other. Okay, the last little bit of work this week will be thinking about reading and writing in an academic context. A lot of that information you probably learned in Writing 121 or your first year composition course if you took it elsewhere. And we'll be using that to produce a summary of the Kiel article. So the first of our 2 readings for this week, I'd like you to produce a summary, and I want you to take a look at the instructions for doing that because I'm very particular about summaries. I really just, I want you to do it in a particular way. I want you to learn to do it that way because I think that being able to crystallize your understanding of your reading is very important. So we'll be doing that work quite a bit this term, and it will also be practice headed toward the reflection at the end of the term. Okay, so that's what a weekly module looks like. There's that week 1 overview that has all the blah, 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 and then you'll see some of the lecture materials and some of the assignments listed underneath the main weekly materials page so that you can access them there. Okay, you can also access grades, right? And as we start to do our work, I'll be inputting the grades here. I had a little problem. Yeah, you should be able to see a total. If you don't see a total, let me know. I had a problem last term where things in Canvas weren't totaling, and I think even the Canvas administrator didn't know how to fix it. So if that's happening to us this term, I really want to make sure that you have control over and can see how you're doing in your grade, right? So this is the beginning of a dialogue between you and me about your overall score. And I'd like you to have that information as soon as I can get it to you. I'm usually about a week. It takes me about a week to get things graded. Once I head toward the middle of the term and I've got lots of drafts of papers, I'm really a writing intensive teacher. So I'm quite busy at the middle of the term providing feedback to students. And things start to slow down at that point. So just know if you're noticing, that's why. And I'm often more active in giving feedback than I am in participating, for example, on discussion boards once the term gets underway. But I do want you to have access to each other and hopefully to me in discussion boards throughout the term. There's also a list of people, so you can see names of people in our class. The student resources is a Canvas resource. So if you're having trouble with Canvas, you might check there. And as I said, there's a EOU bookstore link as well that's accessible to you here in Canvas. Okay, so let me see if I've talked your ear off yet. Okay, I've talked about that. I think I've covered everything that I need to say. I'll just say that I don't know, grammar may be like a word that makes you feel terrified. I want to say that for me, this is a fun class. It's a real trick to try to help native speakers see grammatical structures. And so I'm having fun trying to problem solve that to try to help you. So on the back end, that's what I'm doing. I hope you have some fun this term with grammar, like noticing what's happening with language. Grammar in the wild is just a beast. It's marvelous and entertaining to see what people do with language. And language is not controlled by the books, right? Language comes first, and then the handbooks come after, and the handbooks try to explain what's happening with language, but they are always too late. Language is already gone. So I hope you'll have some intellectual fun watching what happens with language as you acquire some frames of reference for understanding the patterns that you're starting to see. And I just think that's very fun. And I hope if you're a teacher that you'll learn to make it fun for your students, just to marvel at just the impossibility of language and how it works. It's just astounding how complicated it is and how beautiful it is. So I hope you'll have fun with that. And I look forward to working with you in Canvas. So I will see you there.